Hey Monarchs, it's Mr. Bryant. Today we're going to be talking about who's to blame for the Holocaust and specifically what it means to be an upstander or a bystander in history. This concept you guys have known since freshman year from college readiness, but it's also something that's core to what it means to be a facing history school, which is what AJR is. So you're going to go through your handout and answer these questions. The warm up is basically a what would you do scenario. Basically, it's going to give you 4 scenarios for each one. You're going to tell me what would you do. Be honest with yourself. What would you do? And then what do you think the right thing to do would be? So 2 questions, and maybe sometimes that'll be the same thing, and maybe that'll be a different thing. Everyone's going to answer differently. So I'm going to read. All right. So, what would you do? Situation 1. It is late on a Friday night. While coming home alone from a friend's house, you hear a scream coming from a dark alley. You hear it more than once, and it sounds as if someone is in deep pain. It sounds as though this person is being attacked by someone. What do you do, and why? So think about what would you do, and then also what do you think the right thing to do is. Situation 2. You are at home, asleep in your own bed. You hear several bullet shots fired a few houses down, and then a sharp cry for help. You wait a while, but don't hear any more bullet shots, nor any further screams. All night long, no police or ambulance sirens are heard. What do you do, and why? Again, what do you do, and then what do you think the right thing to do is? Okay, and then last 2 situations. Situation 3, walking down the street in the pouring rain, a homeless person asks you apologetically if you have something he can cover himself with to keep off the rain. What do you do? And then situation 4, coming home late on Saturday night, a woman is attacked by a man. As he beats her, what do you do? So you answer all 4 of those questions, your own opinions, in the warm-up. Okay, then you're going to do the reading on Hitler's final days about the last part of his life, where he was hiding in a bunker. A bunker is like a large cement structure, usually partially underground, to prevent people from being seen and also to protect people from bombings. So that's where Hitler lived the last parts of his days. It should take you about 10 to 15 minutes to read and answer those 17 questions. Okay. Quick review of World War II. We're going to go through some notes and then kind of go over the flow of the lesson too. So the Axis powers, remember there's 2 sides, Axis and Allied. The Axis powers are Germany, Italy, and Japan. The Allied powers are Britain, France, the Soviet Union, and the United States. Soviet Union, again, is Russia, if you remember. World War II began, remember, September 1st, 1939, when Germany invades Poland. And then the attack on Pearl Harbor is what brings the United States into the war, and that was December 7th, 1941. Facts about Germany, remember the Blitzkrieg, which is the lightning war, air attacks, then tanks, then foot soldiers. The Luftwaffe are the German Air Force, and the Schutzstaffel are also known as the SS, which are basically the Nazi secret police, very loyal to Hitler. In Britain, remember they were able to defeat Germany Operation Sea Lion, which was the Blitzkrieg on London, or the Blitz. And remember that it was only the air attacks on London during the night by the German Luftwaffe, the Air Force, and that was unsuccessful. All right, the Soviet Union. Russia defeated Germany at the Battle of Stalingrad and the Siege of Leningrad because Russia was used to the cold weather, and German soldiers could not. Well, it's not that they couldn't stand the cold weather, but it was harder to get supplies to people with that really harsh weather, whereas Russians were used to it. There's evidence of cannibalism seen during the Siege of Leningrad. It was a very harsh time, and the Russians suffered quite a bit from the German siege. In Japan, remember the kamikaze are Japanese suicide pilots that would fly their planes into the sides of aircraft carriers and other ships. Japanese Americans are sent to internment camps in the United States and are blamed partially for Pearl Harbor or seen suspicious. Tojo was sentenced to be hanged for war crimes. Remember, he's the dictator and prime minister of Japan. And the Japanese never issued an apology for the war crimes they committed. Think about like the rape in Nanking and other atrocities we've discussed until April 29th, 2015, so only 5 years ago. And this stuff that happened in the late 30s, early 40s. And if you actually click through, there's a video, there's a link to a USA Today article in the notes section, and you can watch the video of the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, apologizing for those war crimes. Okay, so the Holocaust is a big part of our class and what we've been talking about, especially those of you that are in Mr. Garcia's class and have been reading Night. And I know you guys have been doing work with it through Miss Copera with art and drama as well. There's 7 stages for the Holocaust, and we're going to kind of review them right now. Stage 1 is persecution. Remember that Jewish people's businesses were boycotted. They were treated poorly by the Germans, by everyday German citizens. Stage 2 was classification. Remember the badges of hate, how people had to wear the Star of David as patches on their clothes and were like classified as the other and not as Germans, not as Aryans, the harmful concept of the Aryan race. Stage 3 is discrimination. Jewish people's civil rights are taken away. They're not allowed to practice their religion. And eventually you have Kristallnacht, which is the Night of Broken Glass, where Jewish businesses were vandalized and destroyed. Stage 4 is segregation. They're separated from the German population. Jews were sent to ghettos, which were neighborhoods that were set up specifically for them, like with poor sanitary conditions, and they're stuck behind walls. Stage 5 was deportation, where they're transported to concentration camps and death camps. Places like Auschwitz that are discussed in Elie Wiesel's book. Stage 6 is extermination, which is the final solution. Hitler's idea of like a final solution to the Jewish problem. This idea that Jews were a problem to be solved, and this idea that we need to get rid of them. They need to be exterminated like they're rats or something terrible like that. This is the use of gas chambers and then ovens to destroy the bodies. And stage 7 is liberation or freedom. Jews are freed from concentration camps from soldiers from the Allied forces. So United States, British, and Russian soldiers all freed different concentration camps. Okay, so punishment for the Holocaust. So the Holocaust is obviously this really terrible event. 6 million Jews killed, 10 million people total killed, including people that are LGBTQ, people that have disabilities, all killed just for being different than what Hitler and the Nazis saw as the superior race, this idea of the Aryan, pure white, blonde hair, blue eyes, European. So the Allied powers held what's called the Nuremberg trials, similar to like Nuremberg laws, but now think about Nuremberg trials as the other end of it. And now it's a series of court cases trying to punish the people responsible for the Holocaust, all the way up from guards stationed in Auschwitz, to doctors that are in the camps, to the person that organized all of the camps themselves, okay? The Nazis defended themselves by arguing this concept of Führerprinzip, which is basically the idea that the Führer, or Adolf Hitler, gave them orders to do something. They only committed crimes because they were ordered to do so by the superior officers, and because this was what the Führer wanted. This is what Hitler wanted. They say that they were afraid to die for disobeying orders. Ultimately, this argument in the courts is seen as not good enough, and this is a precedent's been established by the Nuremberg trials. It's really important. It doesn't matter whether you were ordered to do something wrong. If you did it, you're still responsible for it, because even if something is morally wrong, like killing civilians or something like that, or something like the concentration camps, soldiers should be disobeying those orders when they are morally wrong. So anyone that used that as an argument, it was ultimately seen as not strong enough of an argument. And this is really important. So just the idea of like just following orders is not good enough. And it doesn't make in the eyes of the Nuremberg court. And so Nazis were sentenced for their crimes. The commandant or commander of Auschwitz, Rudolf Hess, seen here in this image with next to Adolf Hitler, he's sentenced to life in prison, and he basically takes matters into his own hands and dies by suicide after the sentencing. Okay, so some key terms I'm going to review, stuff that we've talked about beginning of the year and also even last year if you had me for freshman year. The idea of a bystander and upstander. A bystander, remember, is an eyewitness to an event. but they do not participate. They are an onlooker. They just see what happens, but they don't actively do anything. An upstander is a person who is willing to stand up and take action in defense of others. So they're not on the sidelines. They do participate. They do insert themselves into the story to try to stop something from happening that they think is wrong. Another key term to know is the term Samaritan, which is a charitable or helpful person. This is actually like a biblical term, and actually is in, if you've heard of the term the Good Samaritan, that's like a story from the Bible. And this is like going to be important for the video we're going to watch about, called the Bad Samaritan. And then indicted means to formally charge someone of a crime. So if you're indicted of something, that means that you've been charged of a crime. It does not mean that you were like guilty of the crime, but it means that the courts are going to try you put you on trial for it. So, for example, the Nazi commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Hess, was indicted for the murder of the Jews that were killed at his camp. If that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so you're gonna watch the videos. There's 2 clips. They are in the PowerPoint. If it doesn't work in the PowerPoint, I have a link right below in the notes right here. There's 2 links to 2 parts of it. And then also I have put links to them in the Google Docs. So you're gonna watch these 2 parts. I think it's a total about like 15 minutes. Like one's like 7 minutes, one's like 6 minutes. You're gonna watch the video clips and then you're gonna write a reflection. It's about this student at UC Berkeley named David Cash, who is with a friend at a casino when his friend does something really terrible. And the whole concept, it's about a murder and a sexual assault. So it is difficult content matter. So please know that going into it. And once we start, or after you watch the videos, you're going to write a response to it, which is, I'm going to click through these 2 videos. You should be able to watch them on your own if you click the links. So the reflection question is, who do you believe is to blame for what happened to Sharice Iverson? So some thoughts here. I have a word bank here and in the document if you need it. Think about, is David Cash, the UC Berkeley student, blame? Is Sharice's mother or father to blame? Is Sharice herself to blame? Are the casino staff to blame? Is David's friend Jeremy Strohmeyer to blame? Are the police to blame? Are the other bystanders in the casino to blame? Think of the word upstander and bystander in your response and try to write a reflection, maybe like 3 to 4 sentences about that. Okay? When you're done with that, there's an exit ticket. And I want you to take this concept that we're talking about, this idea of who is to blame, bystanders, basically like, are you to blame if you're a bystander and something terrible happens? You're going to be looking at your, for the exit ticket, you're going to think about that question in terms of the German citizens, because throughout Germany's history, we see things like the Nuremberg laws, like Kristallnacht, like the discrimination at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. There's all these examples of Jewish people openly being blamed for things and treated poorly leading up to the Holocaust and leading up to eventually their murders in these terrible concentration camps or by the SS kill squads. So I want you to think about that as you respond to the question, basically, were German bystanders, German citizens who acted as bystanders, who didn't do anything, do they share any of the blame for what happened during the Holocaust? And that's going to be the question we're going to think about. A quick announcement as well. Coming up, we are going to actually have a virtual Holocaust speaker in a week and a half. Okay, so a week from Thursday, we're going to have the virtual speaker, a survivor who was a little girl at the time of the Holocaust and hid from the Nazis and managed to avoid the camps while some of her family members were killed. We're going to do a virtual Q&A over Zoom. I'm going to set that all up for you guys, and we're going to start submitting questions ahead of time. I want to try to get as many of you guys as possible in there for the video, or for the video chat, and I'll post some more stuff on Thursday about it as well. All right, Monarchs. I hope you're having a great day. Take care.